Hi guys, it's Joy, and I thought my last video was probably going to be it for the Onion series. However, I am learning, and I found this out the other day, but I heard about it, but I didn't really look into it. But apparently coming out very soon, there is a whole documentary about Onion that's going to come out on Discovery per Chris Hansen and Shiloh. So that's a thing. And that's another video, because I have some things to say about that. Also, guys, if you didn't see my other, I think, 4 videos on Onision and Kai, make sure and go check those out. This one might not make as much sense. I'll have links in the description, links up here, as well as I've been doing a series on Eugenia Cooney. You know, somebody Onision loves to do nasty hate videos about. Shane Dawson, Trisha Paytas, and I've just been doing a series on Britney Spears. And if you like this kind of content, please help me out. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and hit notifications. Okay, on with the video. But today is something that somebody had sent me I didn't know about. Because remember I told you guys, the last couple years I've been out of the loop. I mean, I kind of lightly looked in on some things. And I have my awesome girlfriends, hey ladies, hey, who would kind of like give me info and keep me up to date with stuff. But I was very removed from the Onision thing, and I'm glad I was. I had so many people back in the summer of 2019, this is your chance to come back. And at that point, I was still almost 300 pounds and bedbound and having to lay on my stomach. And I was like, I'm not in the right place for this. And I just saw where it was going. You know, when you get on YouTube and you get into these, you know, depending on what genre you get into, like the genre that I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole of, some of these communities, they have patterns to them, and I could see where the pattern was going. And on top of that, I knew, I'm going to try to say this as respectfully as I can. I had heard a lot of shady things about Chris Hansen already, and of course, most people who cover this stuff don't really do their due diligence or research, because most of the people who you're going to see cover this, not all, some do care. Most of them, I don't think really, even though they act like right fighters and they're in the moral right and the high ground, they don't really care about the people or the situations. YouTubers care about making a few nickels and getting as much attention as possible. And I saw what this was going to devolve into. And when I knew some of the shady dealings with Chris, and then watching Chris go on YouTube, I'm like, anytime you see somebody who is that big into Hollywood suddenly switch gears, especially if they've had controversy and go into YouTube, your career failed. But what's going on? I also knew about the bad checks and some different things with merchandise. So I was kind of going, this is going to implode in everyone's face. And I don't want to be anywhere near it when it does. And then, of course, when there's nothing else to talk about, then the infighting. I love the infighting in this community where when it comes to talking about Onision, well, who cares more? I care more. Who's exploiting him? You're exploiting him, and everybody's exploiting him, and I'm not exploiting him, and I'm exploiting, you're exploiting. Here's a newsflash. And I think this is so funny. Anybody on YouTube who is talking about this situation, it can be looked at as exploitative. That's just what it is. Now, it doesn't mean that's always the intention or the case, but we are all wanting to, you know, grow our channels and grow our platforms and be seen on YouTube. That's why we put ourselves out here, to make content to be seen. So, but by that logic, then any video about anything at all on YouTube is exploitative. Everything in the world. So why not get mad at marketing, at advertising, and at the media as a whole? Why not get mad at books? So I always think that's a really funny argument, but I saw what this was going into. But I find out there's this documentary coming out, and you know, I don't want to call anybody out specifically, but so many people who were, you know, on the Chris Hansen train, then jumped off and how evil he is, are now right back on. And here's the thing, is that the more the hypocrisy of the YouTube community shows with this, the more it actually makes Onision look good. And I'm not saying this because this is what I want it to be. I'm telling you guys what it looks like. And I want to talk about something somebody had sent me. Onision had did a video a few days ago. Apparently, there was an article where Onision's dad spoke up. And I guess this was like from March 2020. This was a while ago, but Onision did a big breakdown. I actually watched it. He did a big like 50-minute breakdown of this video, or of this article, and was kind of giving his side of the story. Now, there are some things I can't quite verify in what he said, but I will be honest. There were some times where I'm like, he's making good points. He's making good points. And I really want to caution people, and this is where I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to be talking about this documentary and what this is. A lot of people are getting excited because apparently in this new documentary, which I'll get into in another video, His parents are going to be speaking out. And we know for a while, he was on good terms or decent terms with his mother for quite a long time. I think he even bought her house, if I remember correctly. Since then, things have devolved. I don't know what happened. She even would appear in his videos. She had a YouTube channel for a while. I think she's kind of a new ager. Since then, he doesn't talk to either of his parents, and he's made a lot of accusations on his parents. The thing I do want to put out there is that I don't think, this is what's hard. Onision says he's the most honest YouTuber and that he never lies, but then we catch him lying. He says, oh, well, that was a character I was playing, but you were acting like you were presenting as yourself and not the character. We catch Onision in a lot of lies, but Onision many times will drop truth bombs on something that end up exploding in everyone's faces. However, Onision is such a mean character about what he does and how he does things. He seems to always fail to understand it's not that you have the right information, it's your delivery. And that's going to always turn people off. In fact, I remember when he had some sort of fight with Kai back in the day, before Kai was Kai. And he admitted that he was verbally not nice to her. The A word, please and fur. And I believe in one of those videos he had said that Kai had kind of opened his eyes and said, you know, you keep thinking everything is about you being right. But it's not, it doesn't matter if you're right, if you're not, I think it was like presenting the information correctly or the way you're coming at things. Nobody's going to listen to you. But then again, as we know with Greg, with Onision, at least from what we've seen and what he's presented on YouTube, a lot of what he seems to get off from and a lot of what he gets excited about is kind of being, you know, the victim lone wolf and the only right fighter in the situation, not seeing necessarily how he put himself there. It's really weird, like watching his ego swings. He's either the best and the most intelligent, or he's the victim and he's so downtrodden, but he's so much more intelligent than everybody else. Feel pity for him. But then sometimes he's happily the victim, but then sometimes he happily plays the role of the villain and doesn't care. It's just, it's an interesting dichotomy, but it's also kind of the swing back and forth that you'll see with a lot of people who have narcissism or who have sociopathy issues. I'm not saying he does. I'm not here to diagnose people. I'm just saying it smells weird watching how his ego shifts back and forth, but then welcome to being a human being. I just want to caution everybody because a lot of people have said there are no court Onision's making a ton of accusations against his parents for like things like the P word and certain things. Now, I've tried to do some digging, and as far as I can see, and I'm going to do some more, nobody else can actually find any real evidence of this other than Greg's words on this. The problem is, many times when Greg will say something about a person, sometimes it ends up being true. Sometimes he's just BS talking and he's trying to create drama, and then sometimes he says stuff and everybody goes, oh, okay, and then it ends up being correct. And we had attacked him for being correct, thus ends up, you know, him shifting to another ego cycle that he goes through. It's always funny, too, for him to say, I don't care what anybody thinks, but then he's so loud about defending himself and his position. Well, if you didn't care what people think, you wouldn't care to defend yourself. I do always find that a funny argument. People go, oh, I don't care what anybody thinks. And I'm like, yeah, you deep down you do. You might be covering it up, but you do, because we all want, as human beings, we're social creatures and want love and acceptance. It's what it is. Now, you can not care about people's negative reactions, or you can get a thicker skin to it, but there's a part that still hurts. We all just want to be accepted, part of the whole, in the community. Which is why I feel like a form of the A word that's very damaging to people don't talk about is when people lie and gossip so much that they alienate you from a community. In my opinion, it's a form of the A word. Please infer. So, I'm sorry, I know that was a bit of an intro. Like, this is a rabbit hole with this guy that I could talk incessantly about because there's so much to cover and there's so much there. But today, I really want to go over with this topic, this article, and I have some things to say. And I want to say, I think whatever it comes to Greg's parents, I think we should take it with a grain of salt. Because I know firsthand what it's like to have had experiences that weren't reported because you weren't allowed to report it, because parents were cunning and talking to authorities because you were a child and didn't know what to do or that you were supposed to do something, or because you weren't allowed to. So I do want to say I don't think that we should completely eliminate some of what Greg is saying and Greg's experiences. And if you watch, and I'm not saying you should watch his content because I don't necessarily want to support him with what he's done with girls and that he sees no wrong in what he's done with these young girls. Continues to see no wrong in that. But if you were to watch this 50-minute video, there are times he actually does make some good points. And just because we don't like Greg doesn't mean his parents weren't pieces of crap to him. However, because Greg lies, it's hard to know what's real and what's true with him, and that's always going to be the conundrum. So I'm not saying it is true or isn't true. I'm saying take it with a grain of salt. And I think at least on a human level, we owe him that compassion. Maybe some people don't feel that way, but even if people are awful, I try to see people as human beings. I do my best to. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. This is from Newsweek, and this is what it says. And it says, YouTuber Onision's dad wants to set the record straight about their relationship. And this was done by Steve Asarch. And this is on March 30th, 2020. So it was a bit ago. It says in late 2019, Deborah Daniels, oldest stepdaughter, told her stepmom about some of the YouTube videos she's been watching. James Jackson, also known as Gregory Daniel, or on YouTube as Onision, had been accused of physically grooming underage women, and an FBI investigation may have started. Deborah relayed this information to her husband, Randy, who is James's biological father. This one kind of makes me a little bit sad, simply because, and Onision pointed it out, and I'm going to give him credit where it's due. I don't think there was ever any investigation. I think that was some of Chris's manipulation just to get people interested and get them emotionally attached to the story, because we were all excited thinking maybe something's going to finally happen for his behaviors and what he's done to the young girls in his audience, and of course, wasn't the case. The Onision channel was started by Jackson in 2006, but gained traction with the viral hit Banana song, I'm a Banana, in 2009, eventually leading to him getting featured on Comedy Central's Tosh.0. Over the next decade, James would continue posting sketches as well as videos about self-care, thoughts about not wanting to be on the planet, and his personal relationships, pulling in over 5.5 million subscribers across 3 channels. James is currently married to Kai, who identified as a woman until March of 2017 and was a fan of Jackson. He married the YouTuber in 2012 when he was 18, so Kai, and Jackson was 26. I wish they would have pointed out that he met Kai when he was 15 or 16. That's another thing. If I get the pronouns wrong, I'm sorry. I'm trying. Also, when I refer back then to Kai, do I still refer as he if they identified as she? I don't quite know all the rules yet. But I'm trying to be respectful. But please hear, I am trying to be respectful. The pair have 2 children together, and Kai did not respond to a request for comment. Wielding spurious copyright claims against any videos mentioning him, Onision has become a combative fixture in the YouTube community. In recent years, the drama of his own life has eclipsed his own content, blurring the lines between reality and Jackson's fiction. I think we can all agree with that because, again, remember his big push of I'm character, and he's kind of done things like that and of that nature, but then says he's the most honest person, but then says he lies all the time. Like, you can't trust anything he says. And that's the hard part. We don't know when he's saying something crazy off the wall about somebody, if it's just him doing things for attention or if there's something to it. But that is the persona he's created for himself. So it says, in recent years, the drama of his own life has eclipsed his own content, blurring the lines between reality and Jackson's fiction. Jackson's personal relationships have often been subject to controversy and speculation, with multiple women sharing their stories online and in YouTube interviews with Chris Hansen, the former host of NBC's To Catch a P-Word, a reality show where adults would arrive to a house expecting to have physical intimacy with a minor. Ugh, I can't even say it, it makes me gross. Hansen's videos on YouTube featuring interviews with 5 different women who have come forward with claims of the A-word and neglect, as well as a multitude of commentary channels dedicated to the subject, show Randy and Deborah what James appeared to have grown into. It says, it's hard to watch and hear about all this stuff involving your son, Randy told Newsweek. It's hard to talk about, second-guessing if I could have done anything differently, and just wish that things were different than they are right now. It pains me that this kid has made such a mess of his life. There's going to be some hypocrisy that I'm going to point out in this article, and just bear with me here. Randy and Deborah haven't spoken to James in over a decade. They watched him transform from a bright child to a moody teenager, but have been fearful about speaking up. Well, most teenagers get moody. And I'm not even defending him. I'm just talking about the way this article was written. Well, yeah, that's almost all teenagers. You know what Greg has done to people who have come out and spoken out against him, Deborah said. He's been mean to them and harassed them for, a year or more. I don't know where he got that it's okay to treat women like this or anybody like this and his fascination with young girls. It's mind-boggling. Well, if we were to believe the accusations from Greg about the situation with his dad, it's very possible he got it from his dad. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just throwing out a possibility here. Randy and Deborah spoke out publicly for the first time, giving Newsweek their own views about the relationship with Onision. Randy first met James's mother, Tammy, while they were attending the same college in Tennessee. They divorced after 8 years and 3 children. Tammy declined to comment for this story and requested that Newsweek not publish her name. Randy claimed he filed a motion which moved the case to Indiana and was eventually allowed to see his kids for 6 weeks every summer and call them on Sundays. He says he's kept all the documents from the divorce in case his kids ever wanted to see what happened. I felt completely beaten down and ended up leaving my job in Indiana as a pastor and moved to Ohio, Randy says. About a year and a half after the divorce, Randy met Deborah and they married in 1991. But see, Greg says the reason he actually took off and moved was because he was having allegations and issues with him possibly doing things with children, please infer, and inappropriateness there. I don't know. I'm not saying it's the case. I'm just telling you guys what Greg has said. That first summer that I had them in 1990, I had to drive out there to pick them up, Randy said. I couldn't afford the plane ticket and just started a new job, so I drove all the way out to Washington State to get them and drove them all the way back. We had a rental house, visited Kings Island, and bought toys for them and used bicycles. We spent as much time with them as we could. And Greg kind of pointed this out, and I could see both sides of this. Greg was saying, oh, you act like you're parent of the year because you drove. That's what you're supposed to do for your children if you can't afford a plane ticket. And while I agree, it might just be, Greg doesn't seem to have a lot of compassion for people and what they've been through if he doesn't understand it. And it could be that his parents are older and they might have some memory issues and this is just the way they're explaining it, just to kind of play devil's advocate. I really don't know a lot of things about Greg, but as a young child, he was the sweetest boy, Deborah recalls. Oh my goodness, just a normal boy that likes to play. There were times when we first got married that Randy wanted to give up and I said no. Whatever those children decide, you are going to have to look in the mirror and say, I fought for those children, Deborah said. We fought to have a relationship with them. We fought to be a good influence in their lives. And this was interesting because Onision went on and on when he heard this part. And he was really angry and he was like, so you want to act like you guys have just been completely blameless and everything I'm saying is a lie and I'm a horrible person, but you're admitting that he wanted to give up on me. And you know what? I feel like I can see it from both perspectives, but I got to give Onision points there. I completely agree with what he's saying, that the stepmom had to encourage him not to give up. But you could also understand if it is a difficult situation, that his dad might have moments of weakness. So I think it's more about, was from the way this is written, which we can't infer, unfortunately, was this a moment of weakness or did he just want to wash his hands of it? But the fact that a stepmom would say that and put that out there, what does that do to a child? That's really dehumanizing. Let me give you, for instance, when I was younger, it was my stepmother, when I was 8 years old, who made sure to inform me that the way I came about in the world, I was the bet that nobody wanted. My mother couldn't do certain forms of birth control. My father said, you don't need birth control. I can guarantee you're not going to get pregnant. Thus, I came into the world. And that's what I learned at 8 years old. And when I was sad about it, I was scolded for being sad about it because I'm being stupid. And I couldn't believe, I've had parents, both parents, at different holiday gatherings, multiple times in front of the whole family, say never have kids. The worst decision of my life was having kids. Wish I would have never had kids. Right in front of me and my sibling. So I have a hard time because like I said, I'm trying to play devil's advocate with a situation, but at the same time, looking at this, I have a really hard time wanting to trust too much of what they're saying if A, they wanted to give up, and B, they even thought to publish that. I've got to give Craig credit here. I really do. Over the next few years, contact was sporadic with the kids, Randy said, though they sent Christmas and birthday presents when possible. When James was 17, he came to live with Randy and Deborah. They say he was a difficult teenager who didn't want to follow any rules. I get that, but that's a lot of teenagers. Like, let's just be, I'm not saying that Greg isn't who he is, but a lot of teenagers are that way. I told our neighbor, if you see anything strange going on in the house, call the police because Greg was getting so out of control, Deborah says. Greg said he was going to burn down the house a couple times when he was going off on some of his tangents, Randy said. Whenever he would get angry and start yelling and cursing and calling us all sorts of names, it was just kind of escalating. And so I was afraid that there would be a physical altercation. And that's why I called the police. I told the officers, look, I need help. Can you explain to Greg that he has to listen to his parents and can't do whatever he wants? That's the thing though, knowing how Greg verbally is, and he's admitted that to Kai he's been verbally A-word, I could see where his parents are coming from, possibly. Still, Randy and Deborah tried to support and encourage James. This kid was so promising. When we had custody of him, Randy said, we were trying to encourage him because at that point, he had started coming up with the whole Onision thing. We offered to send him to LA Film School to get some additional training, but he was just too smart for everyone. Now I have a couple thoughts on this because Greg had broken down the time frame and the timeline and said, that's not true because I was 15 years old. How would I have gone to college out there when I was 15? Now, maybe, not saying this is the case, but maybe there were some sort of summer programs. There were colleges that I went to in different places when I was a teenager and a preteen that had different summer camps for music or that were specialized in certain things to help you if you were trying to be a performer or that sort of thing. So, if I'm being fair, maybe there was just something like that got mixed up. Maybe the intention of his parents was wanting to send him to school, but they're kind of getting the timeline mixed up because it's a while. But per Greg and Greg's timeline of things and the age that he actually was, it wouldn't match up. So I kind of get it. It says during a road trip to Nashville, he was listening to his music and had it up very, very loud. Even though he said he's listening to his headphones, Randy said. And Greg went on about, the fact that we didn't really have speakers then. You would have a Walkman or a Discman, right? You would have a CD player and you had a jack for headphones. Guys, all of that, I lived during that time. It all checks out. So I'm like, what might have been happening is the music was up loud and coming through his headphones. But, and again, this might just be the fact that his parents are aging boomers and don't really know how to talk about some of this stuff, just to kind of be fair. Because, Greg, a lot of times to try to prove his point, will nitpick at tiny details. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I said to Greg, please turn down your music, and he wouldn't do it. So I pulled off on the next exit. I stopped, turned around and said, Greg, turn your music down, it's way too loud. And that's when he went off. He started screaming and was just gonna bolt. He was gonna leave. And so I turned around, unbuckled my seatbelt, and tried to reach and grab his shoulders to keep him from leaving. Debbie was trying to untie his shoes, and he was kicking at me, broke my glasses, and bloodied my nose. This one gets interesting because the way Greg describes the scene is that both of his parents are sitting in the two front seats. And as a result of sitting in the two front seats, how can his dad be turning around trying to keep him down and his mom untying his shoes? I can understand what he's saying, and I can agree to an extent, but it also sounds like it might be a bit of splitting hairs because when you're looking at this, he says that he turned around and tried to keep Greg down. Well, does that mean the mom got out from and got to the side of the car? Is he just kind of explaining the series of events but doesn't go into all the details? Maybe he did turn around. Greg says he turned around and he got choked. Which if that happened, that's awful. And I feel for Greg if that's something that he had to go through and that he ran away. So honestly, I could see some of Greg's points here. I could see that from how this is, how they are talking about this. Yet at the same time, it could just be that his boomer parents don't fully remember everything. They're aging and they're just kind of giving an overview and not the exact details of it. It says passerbys called the police, Randy said, and James was taken into custody at a juvenile detention center. Randy and Deborah hired an attorney to try to work out a settlement to only get him probation. Now, that's another one because there's a lot of interesting back and forth on this. So when it comes to Onision, when it comes to this part, said, well, you would only have to work out a settlement if they actually pressed charges on me. Why would you press charges on your kid? And he was taken in because when asked what happened, he was in a state of shock and trauma and didn't explain it correctly. I mean, that could all be true, especially when you're that young, you don't function very well. You don't know how to function. So But then again, also, Greg, to your standpoint, you're talking about trauma being that young. What do you think happens to the young girls you're around with what you do? Might want to look back on you on that one. We never saw him take responsibility except that one time when he was behind bars, Deborah said. And we're sitting with him at a table with guards watching. And that really, it's like he snapped out of it. He was acting normal. Scared kid at that point. Greg says he was just relieved to be away from them. I could see it both ways. James has shared his version of the story in multiple videos, ranging back as far as 2009, as well in his book, This Is Why I Hate You. He claims that his father choked him while he was sitting in the backseat of the car and that he was defending himself. James confirms that he spent time in juvenile detention centers, but says it's very obvious what happened. I called his wife something. He attacked me. I defended myself. James also claims in his video that Randy went through his journal and computer files. Randy admits to looking through his journals, saying we were trying to figure out what was wrong with him. We thought he was on drugs, but denies looking through his computer files because James didn't have a computer. I'm going to agree with Onision here when Onision was like, if I were doing film, how didn't I have a computer? Now, back then, you could still kind of do film without a computer, but more and more people, because I would say that was in the late 80s, late 90s, early 2000s, because I know I had a broadcast journalism center in our school, and I was there all day, every day, putting news pieces and stories together. Oh my gosh, I loved that. That was kind of my introduction to YouTube. That was before YouTube was even a thing. Back then, I think it was Tom Green. Tom Green was kind of the first of its own weird reality television series like that. So it was pre-YouTube. What was it? Shortly after that, I think E-Bombs World was the thing. E-Bombs World, I saw that in 2004. I don't know how long it's been around, and then came, MySpace and YouTube, but YouTube is where it was video, which it's just interesting to look back at that. But with Greg saying he always made sure he had access to a computer, I would kind of believe Greg on that, especially if they're saying, well, you wanted to go to film school, but you don't have access to a computer. I agree that there are certain things in the details that aren't fully adding up. Doesn't mean that his parents are fully wrong. I'm just saying there are details that don't add up. So it says, we didn't hear from him all the while, and then all of a sudden, he calls and says he's getting ready to go to the Air Force, Deborah said. When James married his first wife, Sky, in 2005, his father and stepmother were not involved in the wedding, but they did spend some time together in Washington State afterwards. Sky declined to comment. He says this is completely false. I would believe him here. He says weren't invited to a wedding because there was no wedding. We got married at a courthouse, came back, ate dinner, and they never came and spent time with us. It says, the last time we spoke, Greg was assigned to Korea, Randy said. He was military police and wanted to change to non-combatant with only 3 months left on his tour. We told him that was a horrible idea. Just hang in there and let the military pay for your way back. He didn't take our advice. And Greg starts going in on the military would pay for my way anyway. What's the point? Again, there's a lot of stuff to Greg's credit when he's going through this. I'm going to agree. And then a switch flipped, and all of a sudden, all of our calls, and we can't get a hold of him anymore, Deborah said. But it's not that way. It's just you're ghosted all of a sudden, and you have no clue why. We just talked to him last week. What happened? For the next few years, Randy followed the rise of Onision, and saw the I'm a Banana video go viral, pulling in millions of views on YouTube. Then James started making the videos about Randy and Deborah. They stopped watching. I consulted with attorneys and asked if I needed to take action, Randy said. The counsel I got was that that he was not mentioning us by name, so you would have a hard time proving anything in court. Randy can't remember the last time he spoke with James and has never seen his grandchildren. James is Greg. But he still wants to have a relationship with his son. But then they said they know the last, and Greg pointed this out. He's like, but didn't you just say, the last time you spoke to me? Again, there's a lot of back and forth here. It says, this kid did not have the horrible A-word parents who were not involved in caring about his life, Randy said. The record needs to be set straight as far as the role and involvement in his life and what we tried to do for him and his sisters. Now, it does say there's an update. It says the story was edited to clarify that this is Onision's father and stepmother's account of their relationship with him and to remove unverified reference to his mother. Now, here's what I want to say about this. It's not my place whether or not to say what's real or what's not real, but I feel like what I am decent at doing is reading between the lines, especially because I'm a kid of the kind of similar to kind of what Greg has said about his parents. I've been through that. Many of us have been through that with our parents. And this is what I want to point out. just because people really can't stand Greg doesn't mean he wasn't a victim to something when he was younger. And I think it would be very important, and I think it would be of benefit to really take his parents and their account of him with a grain of salt. Because I know a lot of wonderful baby boomers. Hi, my boomers, hi, if you're watching and you're on this you're on this channel. But I also know there were a lot of great boomer parents and there were a lot of awful ones. And the awful ones seem to have the same theme throughout. So my parents' generation. And it was protect your reputation at all costs, even if you have to lie. I know because I have parents, specifically a parent, who is absolutely like that. And they will protect themselves and all of their horrible behaviors to their children or what their spouses are doing that might be horrible, even P-word type of things. So I would say, and the other thing is, Greg has a penchant for saying wild stuff that can sometimes be true. So I would say, take it with a grain of salt, because here's what I think is going to happen. This is what I'm kind of concerned with. I think this documentary is going to come out. People are going to do what they did with Chris Hansen, and they always do this. Instead of doing their research and really looking into things, they're going to jump on the side of Greg's parents and say how horrible Greg is, and then they're going to find out somehow that some of the accusations Greg is making are true. And remember, just because there's not a paper trail from when he was younger doesn't mean things didn't happen. And, you know, does Me Too only go far enough for, well, but if we don't like him, screw him? I think we shouldn't let blind hate of somebody or blind anger or dislike, I don't think we should let us blind ourselves to the truth just because of that. I think it's always important to do your best to treat people like people, because I know what it's like to be in that position, and it's not fun, and I want to, even if I don't like what somebody's done or their behavior, I always want to try to give them that respect. So I wanted to point that out and point out this article because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be covering this Onision documentary, and I have a feeling it's going to, once again, things are going to get wild, but that's just kind of what happens and what Greg has created around himself with this situation. Okay guys, if you like this video, please help me out and give me a big thumbs up to help this channel. Like the video, subscribe, and then hit the notification button so you can be notified about anything coming down the pipeline when it comes, or really any videos that I put out. You can be the first to watch them and know what content I have. Also, sound off in the comments. I'm really curious what you guys think. Do you guys think I'm onto something, or do you think I'm totally off base? Do you have information I don't? Let me know. I'd love to hear it. And please share this content with anybody you know that's you think that would benefit from this. People that you think would jive with this, that would like it. I would love to have my content to as many people as possible. And like I said, guys, make sure and go watch my other videos on Onision. I'll have links in the description, in the cards, as well as some of the other videos I have on Trisha Paytas, Shane Dawson, Eugenia, Cooney, Britney Spears, and other people. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and just keep getting content and plugging away and getting stuff ready for y'all. But I just wanted to get this video out there. And I want to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I just love and appreciate every single one of you. And I'm just so happy to be back with you guys. So until the next video, I'm wishing everybody love, take care, and I'm giving you guys hugs, mwah, and kisses. Bye, guys.